Bitcoin is money, everything else is credit.
Hi, I'm Mai. Welcome back to Bitcoin Basics. This week we heard from three of the most important voices in crypto: Cathie Wood, Lily Liu, and Michael Saylor. And together, their message is clear. We are entering the biggest adoption wave in history.
This was supposed to be a bad month, seasonally speaking. Instead, we're on track for the 5th straight months of gains. Can we keep this momentum going through year end?
Well, we think a lot of good things are happening from a policy backdrop and therefore ultimately a macro backdrop.
Even the worst months are green. Why? Because policy has flipped bullish. Deregulation and new tax rules are creating rocket fuel for growth.
There was a tax policy measure that we're not sure has been integrated into many forecasts yet, and it has to do with depreciation, moving from depreciation to full expensing of structures. That has never happened before. Manufacturing structures for the next 3 years, in the first year they go into service, they will be able to expense fully in that year, as well as equipment, domestic R&D, and software. So music to innovation's ears, I would say. I think we're going to have a boom in economic activity. That first one, the manufacturing structures, is just for 3 years. The other ones have been made permanent. And so this takes our effective corporate tax rate in the United States, not statutory, that's still at 21, but the effective tax rate for the next 3 years at least is going to be roughly 10%, one of the lowest in the world. So I think we're in for some very good times.
A 10% corporate tax rate, lower than almost anywhere else. That means more profits, more innovation, and more money flowing into risk assets like Bitcoin and Ethereum.
We're moving from a rolling recession into a recovery and then into a productivity-driven boom. In terms of the Fed, we do think interest rates will continue to come down. But if we're right, in 2026, at some point, it will be clear we're moving into a productivity-driven boom. What does that mean? Productivity is one of the most potent anti-inflationary forces. This is Reaganomics. It's deja vu. And you'll see back then, in the 20 years that ended in the tech and telecom bubble, real growth was very strong. And during those moments in time, inflation came down to surprisingly low levels. And we think that's going to be true next year as well.
This is Reaganomics 2.0, high productivity, low inflation. The last time this happened, stocks soared. This time, Bitcoin exists.
I do think there's been a lot of uncertainty, geopolitical uncertainty especially. So it seems as though there is a barbell strategy going on here, which is equities to take advantage of lower interest rates and potentially the economic environment that I just mentioned. And then gold, just as a hedge, it seems to me. And the same has been true of crypto assets. They are much more volatile than gold, but they have also done well over time.
Smart money is hedging both ways, stocks for growth, Bitcoin for protection. It's no longer fringe, it's portfolio strategy.
Stablecoins generally, and of course Tether and Circle, have 90% of the stablecoin market now. We think that is a very important entree. The holders of stablecoin will have an entree into the DeFi ecosystem, so decentralized financial services that will now take place on public blockchains. So we think that's really the definition of the next generation internet. It's the layer of the internet that was not built early on, because in the late 80s, early 90s, no one expected financial services to take place on the internet.
Stablecoins are becoming the plumbing of the new internet. 30 years ago, we digitized content. Now we're digitizing money itself.
If you believe Bitcoin adoption is only just beginning, smash the like button and subscribe. because what's coming next is bigger than any bull run we've ever seen.
I think there have been two primary hurdles that have been facing this industry from the very beginning when Bitcoin was created over 16 years ago. The first one is there actually a bona fide blockchain that can perform at internet speed? Scalable infrastructure, that's a lot of engineering that has to take place. We as an industry finally got there. The second has been regulatory. Up until very recently, the largest capital markets in the world spent all of their time and energy being anti-crypto, and that of course changed last November. So part of that has been a technology and engineering problem, and part of that has been a regulatory regulatory and a policy issue. And now what we see happening right now is both of those coming together at the same time to be largely resolved. And that's why we're seeing so much energy and excitement around, one hand, stablecoins and payments.
For years, crypto lacked two things: speed and legal clarity. Today, both boxes are checked. That's why adoption is accelerating.
Stablecoins and payments, people recognizing that yes, in the year 2025, we should have global payment systems that are always on and can actually operate at internet scale and speed. And on the other hand, people are talking about RWA and tokenization, and this idea that $100 trillion of traditional finance assets can come on chain and be accessed by some subset of all of the people that have an internet connection. And that end of the innovation that's happening right now is super exciting, because that is going to take us in the direction of building internet capital markets.
This is massive. Tokenization isn't hype, it's Wall Street's next business model. Imagine trillions of dollars in stocks and bonds flowing onto blockchain rails.
JP Morgan said gold is money, everything else is credit. This morning I said Bitcoin is money, everything else is credit. The success of gold is indicative of the demand of mainstream investors to have a bearer instrument that's a long-term store of value, that's not a currency derivative and doesn't have counterparty risk to a corporation. Gold fits that bill. Bitcoin fits that bill even better, and it's sort of got the digital upside. You know, you can't teleport gold, and you can't program gold to vibrate at 1,000,000 times a second on a computer. So Bitcoin is the technology version of gold. It's digital gold. It's going to be, in my opinion, 10x bigger.
Gold is breaking records, but Saylor is right. Bitcoin is digital gold with infinite upside. You can't teleport gold, but you can teleport Bitcoin in seconds.
ETFs like BlackRock, and that's taking up all the natural supply, and they're doing that on behalf of institutional investors. But these 180 companies that are capitalizing on Bitcoin are buying even more than the natural supply being created by the miners, and they're putting upward pressure on the price. And I think that as we work through the resistance of late and some macro headwinds, we'll actually see Bitcoin start to move up. Bitcoin is digital gold. The world ran on gold-backed credit for 300 years. The world's going to run on digital gold-backed credit for the next 300 years. So treasury companies, in essence, are holding digital capital and creating digital credit instruments on top of that digital capital. And there's, of course, a huge demand for equity and credit instruments in traditional capital markets. And Bitcoin is emerging as the ideal form of digital capital to back those instruments.
This isn't retail hype. It's BlackRock, Fidelity, corporations, and treasuries, locking up supply and redefining money itself.
Well, I think Bitcoin's good for the nation, and the country would benefit. We did buy something like 78% of the entire United States for about $40 million over the past 100 years or so. So I think the United States ought to own a large part of cyberspace, and Bitcoin is the next frontier.
Think about that, a U.S. strategic Bitcoin reserve. If governments start competing for Bitcoin, the price won't just rise, it will detonate upward.
Here's the big picture. Cathie Wood says productivity plus tax breaks plus boom. Lily Liu says the rails are ready for $100 trillion in tokenization. Michael Saylor says Bitcoin is money and governments will want it.
This isn't speculation. It's already happening. Stay prepared, because this cycle could define the next 300 years of finance.
Before you click away, remember, these signals don't come every day. If you don't want to miss the next big crypto move, hit subscribe now, ring the bell, and join us. because the ones who act early are the ones who win. Thanks for watching.